Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So today we are going to discuss about the management of COPD, and in that first slide is prevention of COPD. The prevention is again the primary prevention, secondary prevention, and tertiary prevention. Primary prevention, that is COPD risk factors and their prevention. Smoking cessation is the most effective means of stopping the progression of COPD as well as increasing survival and reducing morbidity. There are several ways to reduce indoor air pollution exposure, such as by changing fuel types or using an improved vented coal stoves. Several studies have shown that childhood asthma may be associated with abnormal lung function in adults. Optimal control of bronchial asthma, especially during childhood and adolescence, is important to prevent permanent impairment of lung function. Secondary prevention, in that we have investigation. We have an investigation that is spirometry. Spirometry is a method commonly used to diagnose early stage COPD. Medical personnel should be educated to perform spirometry when smokers older than 40 years show respiratory symptoms. Smoking cessation in COPD patients. These are the two things which we can do in secondary prevention. One is early detection by spirometry, and second is smoking cessation in a COPD patient. Then there is a tertiary prevention that involves the prevention of disease progression. Tertiary prevention of COPD involves controlling this decrease of lung function by finding the cause of the rapid decrease in lung function and providing active treatment that is designed for end-stage COPD. The proper treatment of COPD phenotypes has not been identified, but phenotypic specific treatment will be a crucial aspect of COPD tertiary prevention in the future. Smoking cessation is the most crucial and effective method to control the speed of lung function decline in COPD patients. Prevention of acute exacerbation. Influenza vaccine reduces approximately 37% of the total number of exacerbations per patient. CDC recommends the Tdap vaccination in COPD patients to protect against pertussis, tetanus, and diphtheria. In those who were not vaccinated in adolescence, pulmonary rehabilitation improves symptoms, quality of life, and physical and emotional participation in everyday activities. Long-term beta agonist or long-acting antimuscarinics, bronchodilators, and inhaled corticosteroids, LABA combinations prevent exacerbation. Triple therapy with inhaled corticosteroids, LABA plus LAMA, shows an additional prevention effect. Pharmacological management, it consists of bronchodilators, antimuscarinic agents, methylxanthines, anti-inflammatory agents, mucolytics, and antioxidant agents, other pharmacological treatments. So the bronchodilators are medications that increases FEV1 and or change other spirometric variables. Beta 2 agonist. The principal action of beta 2 agonist is to relax the airway smooth muscles by stimulating beta 2 adrenergic receptors, which increases cyclic AMP and produces functional antagonism to bronchoconstriction. Short acting is act for 4 to 6 hours, and long acting beta 2 agonist, that is LABA beta 2 agonist, they act for more than 12 hours. Formoterol and salmeterol are twice daily LABAs that significantly improves FEV1 and lung volumes. Indacaterol is a once daily LABA that improves breathlessness, health status, and exacerbation rate. Adverse effects include resting sinus tachycardia, cardiac rhythm disturbances, exacerbated somatic tremors. Hypokalemia can occur combined with thiazide diuretics. So one must remember the side effects are resting tachycardia, cardiac rhythm disturbances, sometimes in the patients who is a known case of cardiac disease, tremors and hypokalemia can occur combined with thiazide diabetes. So you must be careful in a patient who is on diuretic and having a hypokalemia. The second is antimuscarinic drugs. Antimuscarinic drugs blocks the bronchoconstrictor effects of acetylcholine on empty muscarinic receptors expressed in the airway smooth muscles. SAMAs, namely ipratropium and oxytropium, such as LAMAs like tritopium, aclidinium, glycopyrronium, bromide, also known as glycopyrrolate, and umeclidinium have prolonged binding to empty muscarinic receptors, thus prolonging the duration of bronchodilatory effect. Clinical trials have shown a greater effect on exacerbation rates for LAMA treatment versus LABA treatment. The main side effect is dryness of mouth. Occasional urinary symptoms have been reported. Inhaled anticholinergic drugs are poorly absorbed, which limits the troublesome systemic effects. Methylxanthines like theophylline, the most commonly used methylxanthine, is metabolized by cytochrome P450 mixed function oxidases. Clearance of the drug declines with age. Adverse effects are toxicity is dose related because their therapeutic ratio is small, and most of the benefit occurs only when near toxic doses are given. So while choosing methylxanthines as a therapy, one must be very careful and monitor the side effects more frequently. So here is the guidelines which shows how the bronchodilators are used in the stable COPD. Like, what is the role of bronchodilators in stable COPD? Inhaled bronchodilators in COPD are central in symptom management and commonly given on a regular basis to prevent or reduce symptoms. It has an evidence A. Regular and as needed use of SABA or SAMA improves FEV1 and symptoms. It also has an evidence A. Combinations of SABA and SAMA are superior compared to either medication alone in monitoring, improving FEV1 and symptoms. It also has evidence A. LABAs and LAMAs significantly improves lung function, dyspnea, health status, and reduce exacerbation rates. It also has evidence A. So these are the things which indicates the things which are very much beneficial in the management of COPD. Combination treatment with LABA and LAMA increases FEV1 and reduces symptoms compared to monotherapy. It also has evidence A. Anti-inflammatory agents, that is inhaled corticosteroids. All of you know that the inhaled corticosteroids is the main drug in the treatment of bronchial asthma, and here it in COPD it has a little secondary role, that is after LABA and LAMA the role of ICS comes. So what the guidelines say about this inhaled corticosteroid in COPD, that an ICS combined with LABA is more effective than the individual component in improving lung function and health status and reducing the exacerbations in patients with exacerbations and moderate to severe COPD. So what does it say? A patient who is moderate to severe case of COPD and who is in exacerbation, the inhaled corticosteroid has a role. It has evidence A. Regular treatment with ICS increases the risk of phenomenon, especially in those with severe disease. Evidence A. So pneumonia, those patients of COPD who are on regular use of ICS also has a tendency to develop pneumonia. It means though you are permitted to use the ICS in a moderate to severe patients of COPD, you should use it judiciously in the proper dosage where the patient gets the maximum benefit. And second, you should be vigilant about the development of pneumonia in these patients. It is about the inhaled corticosteroid. Now we'll talk about oral glucocorticoids. Long-term use of oral glucocorticoids has numerous side effects with no evidence of benefit. Yes, there are numerous side effects with oral glucocorticoids, and so it should not be used regularly in a patient of COPD. Key points for the use of anti-inflammatory agents. Long-term monotherapy with ICS is not recommended. Yes, as like asthma, here the treatment with ICS for long-term is not indicated. Long-term treatment with ICS may be considered in association with LAVAs for prevention for patients with a history of exacerbation despite appropriate treatment with long-acting bronchodilators. Yes, it also has an evidence that the patient who is given LABA, and if he develops exacerbation despite proper use and a long-term use, then you can add ICS to that patient. Long-term therapy with oral glucocorticoids is not recommended. Yes, these are the guidelines and the recommendations given by Gould. Antioxidants, mucolytics are recommended only in selected patients. Statin therapy is not recommended for prevention of exacerbation. This is also shows evidence A. The phosphodiesterase 4 inhibitors. The principal action of PDE4 inhibitors is to reduce inflammation by inhibiting the breakdown of intracellular cyclic EMP. Roflumilast is once daily oral medication with no direct bronchodilator activity. It reduces moderate and severe exacerbations treated with systemic corticosteroids in patients with chronic bronchitis, severe to very severe COPD, and history of exacerbations. The beneficial effects of roflumilast have been reported to be greater in patients with prior history of hospitalization for an acute exacerbation. So here comes the drug which you can include in a patient who has a history of exacerbations, who is in group B, and you can add this particular drug. It also has an adverse effects like diarrhea, nausea, reduced appetite, weight loss, abdominal pain, and roflumilast should also be used with caution in patients with depression. So these are the two things which you need to consider, And one important thing is if you want to add roflumilast in a patient who is already on say darbepoetin or aminopyrin derivatives, then you should discontinue these medications, that is darbepoetin, 8 days, and after that only you can start roflumilast. So you cannot use this particular drug with aminopyrin derivatives. Mucolytics and antioxidant agents in COPD patients not receiving inhaled corticosteroids. Regular treatment with mucolytics such as ardostain, carbocystine, and N-acetylcysteine may reduce exacerbation. Okay. So key points for the use of other pharmacological treatments. Patients with severe hereditary alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency and established emphysema may be candidates for alpha-1 antitrypsin augmentation therapy. Any patient who does not have a history of smoking and is 40 years or less than that, and if he develops emphysema, you must suspect the cause of emphysema to be alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, and you must order these alpha-1 antitrypsin levels in that patient. Algorithm for the assessment, initiation, and follow-up management of pharmacological treatment. So here is the chart, guidelines which are given that you, whenever the patient of COPD comes to you, you distribute the patient into group A, B, C, and D. Now, how will you differentiate? Here is the group A, group B, group C, and group D. So you first see the MMRC classification of breathlessness, where the patient fits. If he fits into classification MMRC grade 0 to 1, he is in group A or C, and if the MMRC classification is 2 or more than 2, then the patient is into group A or group D. Now, how to differentiate between A and C and B and D? For that, you apply the second criteria, that how many exacerbations the patient had in the previous 6 months, 1 month, or in the past history. How many exacerbations the patient had? If the patient had 0 or 1 moderate exacerbations, not leading to hospital admission, then the patient is in group A. If you classified the patient into group A and C, and if this criteria like 0 to 1 moderate exacerbations but not leading to hospital admission, then the first A or C, it will be A grade, and B or D, the patient will fit into B grade, right? Now, if the patient has more than two moderate exacerbations or more than one leading to hospitalization, then what? Then ultimately the patient is into group C or group D, right? So whenever you want to apply this classification, first classify the patient according to MMRC classification into group A or group C or group B or group D. Once that is done, then you apply second criteria about exacerbations. Once you apply this criteria, then you can differentiate between A and C and B and D. Yes. Next is all group A patients should be offered bronchodilator treatment, be either a short or a long-acting bronchodilator. Group B patients' initial therapy should consist of long-acting bronchodilators. Group B patients are likely to have comorbidities that may add to their symptomatology and impact their prognosis. Group C initial therapy should consist of a single long-acting bronchodilator. LAMA was superior to LABA. Group D patients can be started with LAMA as it has effects on both breathlessness and exacerbations. For patients with more severe symptoms, LAMA, LABA may be chosen as an initial treatment. In some patients, initial therapy with LABA, ICS may be the first choice. This treatment has the greatest likelihood of reducing exacerbations in patients with eosinophil count more than 300 cells per microliter. Follow pharmacological treatment, that is for dyspnea and exacerbation. It is nicely given. Rehabilitation, education, and self-management. Pulmonary rehabilitation is defined as a comprehensive intervention based on thorough patient assessment followed by patient-tailored therapies that include but are not limited to exercise training, education, self-management intervention, aiming at behavioral change, designed to improve the physical and the psychological condition of people with chronic respiratory disease, and to promote the long-term adherence to health-enhancing behaviors. So pulmonary rehabilitation improves dyspnea, health status, and exercise tolerance in stable patients. It has evidence A. Pulmonary rehabilitation leads to a reduction in symptoms of anxiety and depression. Yes, it also has evidence A. Integrative care and telehealth have no demonstrated benefit at this time. What are the other treatment modalities? Oxygen therapy and ventilatory support in stable COPD patient. The long-term administration of oxygen increases survival in patients with severe chronic resting arterial hypoxemia. In patients with stable COPD and moderate resting or exercise-induced arterial desaturation, prescription of a long-term oxygen does not lengthen time to death or first hospitalization or provide sustained benefit in health status, lung function, and 6-minute walk distance. Resting oxygenation at sea level does not exclude the development of severe hypoxemia when traveling by air. NPPV may improve hospitalization-free survival in selected patients after recent hospitalization, particularly in those with pronounced daytime persistent hypercapnia. Interventional therapies like lung volume reduction surgery, bulectomy, transplantation, and bronchoscopic interventions can be tried in a patient who is having group D disease. Thank you. Hello. Hello.